Welcome everyone to the Department of Justice Coordinated Tribal Assistance Solicitation CTAS Overview webinar. My name is Christina and I will be your moderator for today. So before we begin our webinar today, we would like to start out with a poll question. And the question is, please select the category that best describes your position. Possible answers are tribal leader, government, chief operations or finance, department, agency administrator, manager, program manager or staff, grant administrator or writer, or other. And as you can see from our results, we have 32% are our grant administrator or writer, and 24% equally with program manager and staff, as well as 24% with department, agency administrator or manager. We have 17% other, and 4% tribal leader, government, chief operations, or finance. And with that, it is my pleasure to introduce our presenters from the Department of Justice. With us today, we have Trish Thaxton with the Bureau of Justice Assistance and James Smith with the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention. So starting the webinar today will be our first presenter, James.
Thank you, Christina. Before we get started, I just want to focus on one piece of information that's a little different this year, and you will probably hear this several times throughout the webinar today and several times throughout future webinars, but it's very important to us that we hone this piece in for you. For those who've applied to CTAS before or new, this is going to be a different process. There's a two-step process for applying this year, and for the first time ever, CTAS is using Grantsgov as the first step. So essentially, you're going to have to apply to Grantsgov, and then you're going to receive a link, and then you're going to apply to CTAS via Just Grants. There are a couple of deadlines that you need to mark and make sure that you pay attention to, whether you put them on your Outlook calendar, your Google calendar. These are key dates that you absolutely need to remember. The first date that I'm going to mention to you is the deadline for, there's a couple of deadlines. So the first deadline that you should be or remember is March 16th. That is the deadline in which you need to go into grants.gov and do your standard SF424 and all that good stuff and send that over. So make sure that you do that by March 16th. If you do not, you will not be able to apply to CTAS. So mark that date down. We have our Tribal Safety and Justice website, which has a CTAS webpage. There's a fact sheet on that webpage that has this information broken out. This information is broken out in the solicitation, but I just want to make sure that you understand that. So the first important deadline, again, to remember is registering for grants.gov, and you have to do that by March 16th. The next deadline to think about is March 30th, and that is the deadline in which you have to apply to CTAS. And so at 9 o'clock on March 30th, you will not be able to submit an application after that point. So March 30th is the application deadline. March 16th is the deadline for Just Grants. And then there's a kind of, not a hard deadline, but kind of a deadline that you're going to see in our fact sheet that we are recommending, and I'm going to tell you why we're recommending it. By February 26th, we recommend that if you don't have a Just Grants account already, and this is going to be your first time, that you go ahead and set that account up and do what you need to do to get a Just Grants account by February 26th. The reason why we're pushing that a little bit more than a month out before it closes, we would actually like you to do it as soon as possible, but definitely by that deadline, because this is a new system for us. It's going to be a new system for you. You know, with new systems, sometimes there's bugs and there's kinks. If you do it before February 26th or by February 26th, there's no reason that if you're experiencing problems that we shouldn't have that worked out by that point. Again, you will see that deadline at the bottom of the fact sheet, and I'm just going to reiterate all the deadlines one more time. March 16th is when you need to register for grants.gov. March 30th is when the CTAS application is due by 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. After that point, you will not be able to apply anymore. The March 16th deadline is grants.gov. You need that in order to be able to apply to CTAS. And then the kind of last deadline is February 26th, and that's just to get an account set up in Just Grants, assuming you don't already have one. If you have one, you're good to go. If you don't, you want to do that as soon as possible, but definitely by February 26th. Yes, you can do it after, but you risk running into problems that may not be solved before the time you need to apply. So remember those key things. If you have questions about them, we can explain them again. I'm sure my colleague Trish will touch on those as well, but since it's new, we wanted to make sure that you were fully aware of that. Moving on with my slides. During this presentation, you will learn basically how CTAS has been designed, the approach we took with it this year versus last year, certain details and requirements for the application as a whole, and for each individual purpose area within the application, and essentially how to apply for funding. We are hitting this very high level. Certainly you want to refer to the solicitation for details or ask us questions to get, in the weeds, but we are touching high level with this presentation. Just so you know, CTAS provides federally recognized tribes and tribal consortium an opportunity to apply for funding to develop a comprehensive and coordinated approach to public safety and victimization. We've heard and listened to the tribes for a very long time, for a little over 10 years now when we first established this, that you kind of wanted a one-stop shop, and this was our way of doing that. And we've certainly refined it over the years. At one point, the solicitation used to be well over 100 pages. We're super excited that for the last 2 years, we've significantly decreased that to decrease the burden on you all. So when you're applying to CTAS, you're going to review the entire solicitation and determine which purpose areas, and purpose areas are the funding streams under each office, or the program under which each office involved in CTAS has funding for you to apply to. We just call them purpose areas. But you're going to determine, which one best fits your community needs and your needs, and look at the eligibility requirements to make sure that you fit that to apply. Where you can find the solicitation, you can go to this website right here. For those of you who are on the phone, I will read it for you. For those of you who can see it, I apologize, but I do need to take into account those who may just be joining us by phone only. So you're going to go to www.justice.gov/tribal/open-solicitations. And I will tell you a quick way that I always find it. If you go to Google and type in CTAS 2021, you will pull the page right up. So that's another easy way to find it.
And can we launch poll question number 2? All right, and the question is, please indicate which purpose areas your tribe is interested in applying for, and you can go ahead and check all that apply. And the possible responses are purpose area 1 with the COPS office, purpose area 2, 3, or 4 with the Bureau of Justice Assistance, purpose area 6 with the Office for with the OVC, and purpose area 8 or 9 with OJJDP. And as you can see from the responses, we have 70% planning to apply for purpose area 2, 3, or 4, 65% with purpose area 1, 49% with purpose area 8 or 9, and 30% with purpose area 6. And we'll turn it back over to you, James.
So the purpose areas of the offices involved in CTAS this year are the COPS office, purpose area 1 for safety and community policing. Purpose area 2 is the Comprehensive Tribal Justice System Strategic Planning purpose area. And although it's managed by BJA, the funding comes from the rest of the offices that are also in CTAS, and that's COPS, BJA, OVC, and OJJDP. BJA, purpose area 3 is the Tribal Justice Systems. BJA also has purpose area 4, the Tribal Justice System Infrastructure Program. OVC, Children's Justice Act Partnerships for Indian Communities, purpose area 6. And OJJDP has purpose areas 8 and 9. Purpose area 8 is the Juvenile Tribal Healing and Wellness Courts, and purpose area 9 is the Tribal Youth Program. And before I move forward to the next slide, I just want to go back for 1 second and say, when I read that website, which is the CTAS webpage on the Tribal Safety and Justice website, I wanted to let you know that there's more things on that page than just the solicitation itself. You'll find the solicitation, the fact sheet, coming soon, the FAQs. You'll find a fact sheet for each individual purpose area. You will find all the legal documents, the certs and assurances, statutory authority type documents. You will also find miscellaneous documents like the webinar schedule, the COPS allowable cost list, documents related to things that are allowable in Purpose Area 4. And so just spend some time on that site, because that's really going to be your key to applying and understanding CTAS, in addition to all of us. But that's kind of like the one-stop shop website for CTAS. Next slide, please. So Purpose Area 1. The goal is to explain the implementation of community policing and meet the most serious needs of law enforcement in tribal nations through a broad and comprehensive approach. Some of the things that the COPS office, Purpose Area 1 funding can support is equipment, technology, overtime, training and travel, anti-meth and anti-opioid activities, and career law enforcement officers, including VPSOs or Village Public Safety Officers. And for a complete listing of allowable costs, you can go to that website that I mentioned earlier, and there's a document there that lists pretty comprehensively the things that are allowable and unallowable. And also, if there's something not on that list, feel free to always email tribalgrants@usdoj.gov, and we'll put you in touch with someone from the COPS office to get that question answered. Federal award information. So this is an estimate of kind of what COPS anticipates for the FY21 award season, and we will be doing that for each of the purpose areas. So the COPS office anticipates making up to $24 million available through Purpose Area 1 and awarding up to approximately 40 applications. The COPS office will impose caps on FY 2021 awards based on the number of sworn officers, as you can see here. Sworn officers of fewer than 10, no more than 500,000. For sworn officers of 10 or fewer than 20, no more than 700,000. And for those of 20 plus, no more than 900,000. Purpose Area 2. The goal is to initiate a broad assessment of the tribe's current justice system and then produce a comprehensive plan to further develop and enhance that justice system. And I want to say really quickly, I know the team will agree with me that area, we've seen plans. So for those of you that are interested in doing this, when you submit the plan, we actually take the time to review it and provide you valuable feedback. So just don't think it's something that we put out and that we really don't look at it. We thoroughly evaluate it and give you, great feedback with the hopes of helping you expand your needs further. So a little bit more about Purpose Area 2. So when we talk about developing a justice system-wide strategic plan, think about including things like law enforcement, courts, community corrections, alternatives to incarceration, collaborative strategies to address serious and violent crime, strategies to address crime related to substance abuse and alcohol abuse, including opioids, tribal jails programming, crime victims' rights. I won't read all of this as you can see it here, but there's an endless amount of things here. And so certainly if you don't see something on this list, reach out to us and we can have a discussion with you about what you're thinking. Projects funded under here may be things like a full or part-time project managers to facilitate the planning process, community outreach, office supplies, and tribal to DOJ sponsored training. These are kind of the typical things that we see. However, if something pops up on this list, that pops up as you're writing this that's not on this list, reach out to us and we can see if it's a hard no or something that we just haven't thought of and that we can allow. So always reach out to us if there's questions. So the award information or what we expect to award, we have an estimated $600,000 available and we're going to award up to 4 applications for approximately $150K per award, and the performance period would be 60 months. Next is the Tribal Justice Systems Purpose Area or Purpose Area 3, which is managed and funded by BJA, the Bureau of Justice Assistance. The Tribal Justice System program supports tribal efforts to develop, support, and enhance adult tribal justice systems and prevent crime, including crime related to opioid, alcohol, stimulant, and other substance abuse related to violent crime. This funding supports a broad range of needs in adult tribal justice systems, from prevention and law enforcement to courts to corrections and reentry. Examples of projects that may be funded under here are creating a new or enhanced existing tribal court, an alcohol and substance abuse program, a healing to wellness court, or specialty court. And I want to stop right there and just say one thing. You may hear a couple of times, or maybe another time, where some purpose areas, you may hear some of the same things being funded. And I say that because you will hear when you get to the JJ purpose areas that also a healing to wellness court can be funded. So I just wanted to let you know that it's not a mistake. There are some crossovers sometimes in some of our purpose areas. You can also look at a reentry program, and you can also look at diversion and alternatives to incarceration. Award information for PA3, an estimated $20.6 million would be available, awarding up to anywhere from a range of 25 to 33 applications, looking at approximately anywhere from $250,000 to $900,000 per award, and this will be up to 60 months. Purpose Area 4, the Tribal Justice System Infrastructure Program, which is also under the Bureau of Justice Assistance, BJA. The goal of this program is to assist tribes with building justice system infrastructure capacity by providing funding to support the renovation and/or expansion of existing facilities or establishment of prefabricated or permanent modular buildings to serve as correctional facilities, police departments, courts, correctional alternative treatment facilities, multi-purpose justice centers, including police departments, courts, and corrections, domestic violence shelters, safe homes, transitional living facilities, advocacy programs, and transitional living facilities such as halfway houses. And as I mentioned before, if you go to the Tribal Safety and Justice website, at the bottom of the page is a section that says miscellaneous documents for CTAS FY21. There is a document there that gives a little bit more detail on some things for Purpose Area 4. So please read that if you're thinking about applying. So examples of things that can be funded under Purpose Area 4, renovation and expansion of a police department, renovation of an existing building to serve as a tribal court, renovation of an existing building to serve as a transitional living facility, replacement or existing outpatient or residential treatment facility with a permanent modular facility, purchase of furniture, fixtures, or equipment for a detention center, permanent modular facility to serve as a multi-purpose justice center, and again, as I mentioned before, a DV shelter or transitional living facility. BJA expects for Purpose Area 4 to have about $8 million available, estimated at about 2 to 4 awards, or about 1.2 million per award. Estimated 1 to 2 awards for facility renovation and expansion or completion of an existing construction project for regional facility, and that would be up to 4.8 million per award with a performance period of 60 months. And before I touch on Purpose Area 6, one thing I probably should have mentioned in the beginning for those of you who are longtime CTAS folks and have been applying for a while, you will notice that Purpose Area 5 is not a part of CTAS this year. The Tribal Governments Program will be offered as separate funding via OPW, so just please check their website or sign up for notifications from their website to receive more on that information. Or if you are interested in that program, you can send an email to tribalgrants@usdoj.gov, and I'll make sure that the correct person gets in touch with you. You will also notice that for the second year in a row, Purpose Area 7 is not listed as well. You can also email that same email address, and we'll put you in touch with folks who manage that former program to give you more information on how that's being handled this year. So moving on to Purpose Area 6, which is the OVCs and Children's Justice Center Act Partnership for Indian Communities. The goal of the program is to provide funding in CTA to help Alaska, I can't even speak today, to help tribal communities develop and establish and operate programs designed to improve the investigation, prosecution, and handling of cases of criminal child abuse and neglect, particularly child sexual abuse cases, in a manner designed to minimize trauma for child victims and their families. Examples of projects that can be funded, the CASA program, child forensic interviewer, a special crimes against children investigator or prosecutor, a pediatric SANE nurses, or a child advocacy center. So the award information for Purpose Area 6 for FY20, OVC estimates to have about 2.7 million available for the Purpose Area 6. They're expecting to award approximately 6 awards for up to $450K per award. The performance period will be 3 years or 36 months, however you choose to look at that. Moving on would be Purpose Area 8, the Juvenile Tribal Healing to Wellness Court, which is managed by the Office of Juvenile Justice, Delinquency, and Prevention. The overall purpose of this grant program is to support tribes seeking to establish new and enhance an existing juvenile justice healing to wellness court to respond to the alcohol and substance issues, including opioid use of juveniles and young adults under the age of 21.
And the examples underneath Purpose Area 8 include developing a juvenile healing to wellness court that promotes physical and spiritual healing using a holistic, traditional, and community-wide approach, building capacity for the tribe to implement evidence-based substance abuse intervention and prevention strategies with court-involved youth, and development of an intertribal court.
The estimated funding available is that JJ expects is $2 million for that program or that purpose area, with approximately 5 awards up to $400K per award, and the performance period will be 5 years or 60 months. Next, the Tribal Youth Program, Purpose Area 9, is also managed by the Office of Juvenile Justice, Delinquency, and Prevention. The goal is to support and enhance tribal efforts to prevent and reduce juvenile delinquency and strengthen a fair, beneficial juvenile justice system response for American Indian and Alaska Native youth. Please note the population of youth served under this grant are youth that are age 17 and younger. Applicants may choose to address any of the following eligible activities described below and should choose from the following 2 categories. Category 1, to develop a new tribal youth program. Applicants are limited to those tribes that have not been awarded a Purpose Area 9 award in OJP in FY20, FY19, or FY18. And I know that can sound confusing, so if you have any questions about that, me or my colleagues that are online from JJ will be able to explain that more. But this is also listed in the solicitation, so just wanted to make sure that you were aware of that. For Category 2, continue or enhance an existing JJ-funded youth program. Funding for this activity is intended for current grantees who have developed and are implementing a successful youth program that they would like to expand or extend.
And the examples are after-school programs, diversion programs, truancy prevention and intervention, tribal best practices and traditional healing to support youth, and treatment services for children exposed to violence.
For Purpose Area 9, JJ expects to have about $8.5 million available, awarding up to 17 applications for up to $500,000 per award. Up to 10 awards are expected to be made for Category 1, and up to 7 awards are expected to be made for Category 2, and the performance period is up to 5 years. And before we hop into the polling question, there is one other thing that I wanted to go back and touch on, and it relates to Grants.gov and Just Grants and all of that good stuff. I just wanted to touch on one other thing that I thought was very important for applicants to remember. When you're preparing your SF424, in Section F, include the name of and contact information of the individual who will be completing the application materials in Just Grants. This will allow the system to assign the application to the user in Just Grants. So that's just very important. You want to make sure that that is the same person, and we can discuss that later. If you have questions, you can reach out to us via travelgrants@usdoj.gov. But I just wanted to make sure that you had that key piece of information. And not to worry, too, I know that we have talked a lot about this Grants.gov and Just Grants. When you go to the Justice website and view the CTAS webpage, or if you've gotten one of our recent emails, we have a very comprehensive and detailed webinar schedule, and one of those webinar schedules is a Just Grant session, but that session is also going to focus in the beginning on grants.gov. So you will have experts in Just Grants and grants.gov explaining how the whole process works to you. In this webinar, we just wanted to make you aware. And at that note, you can go on to the polling question.
The question is, did you apply for funding through the Department of Justice Coordinated Tribal Assistance Solicitation in fiscal year 2020? And responses include yes, no, and unsure. And as you can see from the results, 45% said they did apply for funding in fiscal year 2020, 30% did not, and 24% were unsure.
So moving on, we're going to talk a little bit about or give a brief overview of the CTAS application requirements. So again, remember the timeline. So the solicitation itself, in order for you to be able to apply, closes on March 30th. That is the application deadline. March 16th is the deadline to register in grants.gov. February 26th is when or earlier is when we're recommending that if you don't currently have a Just Grants account, that you create one as soon as possible, or definitely by February 26th. Yes, you can do one after, but you just run the risk of maybe not getting problems resolved before the deadline. Other things to think about when you apply for a purpose area under CTAS for FY20, if you are awarded, projects will not be starting until October 1st of 2021. And please note, successful applicants may not begin work until the budget has been reviewed or officially approved by OJP. So you'll learn more about that, like if you're actually awarded, but just wanted to make you aware of that. Eligibility in terms of who can apply. Following applicants are eligible to apply for CTAS. Federally recognized Indian tribal governments, tribal consortia, and tribal designees are eligible to apply only for Purpose Area 6. Each purpose area may have its own different eligibility requirements, so that's why it's very important that you not only pay attention to this brief blurb that I just read, but you go to each individual purpose area that you are considering applying for and making sure that you read their section in detail. However, when you're done reading, if there's still questions, please reach out to tribalgrants@usdoj.gov, and we can put you in touch with a POC for that purpose area to get something answered that you still may have questions about or that may not have been clear in the solicitation. So what should your application include? So we have a list of things here. And so there's a project abstract, application disclosure of high risk status, application disclosure of pending or active applications, tribal authority to apply, documentation or tribal resolution, disclosure of lobbying activities, indirect cost rate agreement if applicable. And one thing to remember about that, try to get working on those as soon as possible. We do realize that a lot of times tribes are always working very hard on this and it can take a long time to get. We understand that. So, submit your current rate that you have, and if it expires, before you're awarded or during that process, we'll be reaching out. However, if we don't have one, or if the one that you submit is already expired at the time of submit, we will be forced to freeze the indirect cost portion of your funds until we receive that information. Also, there's a financial management and system internal controls questionnaire and other attachments as needed, prior OVC approved strategic plan or logic model, and resumes of key personnel. And like I said, always refer to the individual purpose area section that you're thinking of, so that you can understand, what that purpose area may require. So in FY21, applications, as I mentioned before, will be submitted to DOJ in a new two-step process. And so step one, applicants will submit an SF424 and a SFLL and grants.gov, and there's the address for that. And I won't read all of that, but you can see that there. Take a picture of this, screenshot it, do whatever you need to do to make sure that you have this information. It is also laid out very plainly in the solicitation. Step 2 is submitting your full application via Just Grants. But I must reiterate this again, you cannot do step 2 without doing step 1. So don't think that you can just go to Just Grants and be able to apply to CTAS, because it's not going to be able to happen. The two work together. So in applying in grants.gov, there's some key things that you should have and should follow. I won't read all of those things, but you can see those there. If you have any questions, please reach out to us, but we purposely bulleted this out as things that you may need, and some of this information is also listed in the solicitation. As always, whenever you're filling out any grant application, you're going to do a standard SF424, and so you want to make sure that that is complete. You want to make sure that we have correct contact information, that we have full legal names, that you have correct dates in there. If any of this information changes after you submit the application, please email us at tribalgrants.gov. If it's before you're actually awarded, then email us at tribalgrants@usdoj.gov and say, hey, I submitted an application for purpose areas 3, 4, and 8, and my information has changed, and here's the new information. It can be as simple as that, but you want to make sure that we're able to get in touch with you all. Your lobbying form is here. You can see the yellow areas and how you would fill that out. Moving on a little bit about step 2. Applying in Just Grants. As I said before, we are going to have a whole webinar dedicated to that. We also have training materials and tools in which there's a link in the solicitation for that information. But when we have the Just Grants folks come on, they and do the webinar, they're going to walk you through things. They're going to do screenshots. They're going to do demos. And so you're going to be fully prepared. So I don't want you to get nervous or scared about this. You know, just because it's new doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. It's just we want to make sure that you're well equipped. Available tools and resources. Please visit the website that I mentioned before, www.justice.gov/tribal. There are open solicitations. There's an FY21 CTAS webpage that has any and everything you need to know to be able to complete this application. So you definitely want to spend some time on there. We also have at the bottom, I think the very last document on that webpage is the past successful application packet. And it's just to kind of give you an idea of how folks kind of went about their narrative and addressing their application, who were awarded in previous years. So certainly you should not be copying that. But it's just to kind of give you an idea of maybe the approach they took to get awarded. There's also the CTAS online guide. This guide contains strategies to read and comprehend a complex grant solicitation, coordinate a robust grant writing team, kind of just all the key tips that you need to do a successful application. I will say, since we're talking a little bit about things that'll help you, do not wait till the last minute. Like, treat this as if it's your grad school thesis or some major project that you're doing to get a job. You don't want to wait till the last minute. Everyone who's involved in this process to come together at least 2 to 3 weeks before it's due. You want to pull out the the solicitation, compare what you have and compare it to what we're asking for, and make sure it measures up, make sure that you have all the pieces. Waiting till the last minute means that you tend to rush, and when you tend to rush, you tend to forget things. And unfortunately, as bad as we feel for folks sometimes, we have seen folks submit a narrative that's in track changes that has all kinds of comments. Legally, we cannot touch that document. We have to accept it the way that it is. If you attach something with the wrong name and it's not what you have, it could cause you to not move forward to peer review. So you want to take your time, allow time to be able to review this so that you don't make any mistakes. I cannot emphasize this enough. The webinar schedule is listed here. As I mentioned before, on the Tribal Safety and Justice website, there's a PDF that has a little bit more information, but here's a snapshot of the schedule, and then there's a link right there to get the webinar schedule right there. And we will be blasting out email blast to remind you guys of when webinars are coming up. We'll be doing tweets and things of that nature as well. In fact, I know the webinar schedule was blasted out last Friday, so expect more of those. If you're interested in becoming a DOJ or DOJ peer reviewer, please just send an email to tribalgrants@usdoj.gov and indicate which office or purpose area that you're thinking of, and we can direct you to the right person to get your peer review materials submitted. If you're having technical problems, it's very important that you screenshot this page, take a picture of it, do whatever you need to do to have this handy, but you want to make sure that you are calling these numbers, getting ticket numbers, getting the names of people that you're speaking to, first and last names, document time so that if there's any late submission issues, you have crossed every T and dotted every I to make sure that you have done that. Also, while I would like to say that late submissions don't happen, that's not a reality. They happen for various reasons, whether it's weather, whether it's an internet outage, or whether it's something on DOJ part. It happens every year. Sometimes we have few, sometimes we have a lot. If you happen to fall into that category on closing day, if you reach out to us and you receive detailed instructions on how to submit your application, it is very, very important that you stop what you are doing immediately and do exactly what it is that we're telling you to do. So we're going to give you detailed instructions on how to get your application in. If you're having technical issues, that should be your top priority. Not the day after, not 5 days after, in that moment in which we give it to you. On that note, time for polling questions.
Our final poll question. The question is there a topic you would like more information on? And you can go ahead and check all that apply. Possible answers are registration process and using the grants management system, requirements for the tribal narrative profile, purpose area narratives and timelines, budget worksheet, budget narrative, allowable costs, understanding the application requirements and checklist. And as you can see from the responses, 78% said the purpose area narrative and timelines, 73% said the budget worksheet, budget narrative, and allowable costs, 64% said requirements for the tribal narrative profile, 53% responded with understanding the application requirements and checklist, and 50% indicated registration process and using the grants management system.
Thank you, Christina. In closing, there's just a few things that we want to cover. CTAS application resources. Again, if you need help or support, this is the information that you need. I recommend you print this out, tape it to your desk, your wall, screenshot it so that you can have this information available. It is in the fact sheet. It is in the solicitation several times. So just want to make sure that you are aware where you can get help if you need it. Again, here's some upcoming webinars. We have a full schedule on the Tribal Safety and Justice website, but just for some ones that will be coming up soon, building strong grant applications on February 2nd. So you guys will have the pleasure of hearing me talk again next week. And then February 11th, the first office up to talk about their purpose area will be COPS. Unless someone else has something else, I think we can open it up to questions at this point.
And our first question is, how recently does the signature on certifications, FMQ, FCQ, etc., need to have occurred? I have my auth rep signed today for the grant due 331. Will that be okay? And what is the standard for this at DOJ?
Yeah, I'll take that question, and that's fine. Like, typically what we're looking for, typically we will see dates where folks have started to gather information as soon as we have released the solicitation. So we will look at that and see that, okay, well, CTAS opened a week earlier. She's already started to gather her information. That's why it's dated there. We won't second guess that at all because we'll know. And even sometimes, you know, folks are historically expecting us to open in November, which is typically when we open in the November, early December. So some folks already anticipate and they start getting stuff in early November. So we look at that as folks as just being proactive. However, though, if I see something that's dated like 2-3 years ago, that's going to be a red flag, and we're going to ask for updated information. It needs to be in a reasonable amount of time in which we can know that you were gathering the materials for this application period. So hopefully that makes sense.
Great, thank you, James.
Mm-hmm.
And our next question is, we have a BIA law enforcement. There are about 5 officers, but they are very sparse and they can't keep up with the needs. They need 3 more tribal police officers to have within their tribal department. Can they do that?
I'm going to turn that over to cops, but it seems like the person would be applying or talking with the cops office about this. Melissa or Matt or Ann, do you want to take this?
Yep, thank you, James. And if you can hear me, this is Melissa with the cops office. And yes, for that inquirer, you're more than welcome to submit an application for law enforcement under Purpose Area 1. Please feel free to review the solicitation in the Purpose Area 1 section. You do have an opportunity to apply for law enforcement officers, whether they're new, rehired, or pending layoff. But yes, you are eligible to apply for law enforcement needs.
Excellent. Thank you, Melissa. And our next question is a question about applying for a grant this year. The solicitation did not clarify this part. They are trying to get started on the DOJ CTAS submission. They have 2 questions that they are not seeing the answers for. They understand that they will need to submit the 424 in grants.gov in order to initiate the application in Just Grants. However, they do not know the total amount of the application which is needed for the 424. What do they need to do about that? And do they need to wait until they have the total budget perfected before they can submit the 424 to go ahead and initiate the grants in Just Grants? And if they are applying for 2 programs through CTAS, do they combine them in the grants.gov application?
So I'll take the first question. And really it boils down to personal preference. In my experience in working with grantees over the last 10 or plus years, most of them, when they're sitting down to actually submit their application, they already have all their materials ready. So their budget is done, their abstract is done, their purpose area narrative, so that when they're sitting down, they have all the numbers they need to do what they need to do. So my recommendation would be that you probably get started on your budget. Think about what you're going to apply for, get those budgets out the way, and then when you're about to go into grants.gov, you already have that information, and it's not a guess, and it's not something that needs to be changed later. While we applaud you wanting to start early, and I certainly don't steer you away from that, I would say it may be a little bit better and a little bit more strategic to get your budget knocked out of the way first so that you have those numbers ready. I don't know if any of my other colleagues feel differently, but that's what I would recommend, and that's what I've heard a lot of grantees say when they actually sit down to do their application, that they already have their materials ready, including their budget. As far as the second question and whether or not, and I think they're asking, are they combining amounts? I can find out. I'm not 100% sure. My educated guess would be that you're going to be doing separate SF424s, because although CTAS is one solicitation, it's separate funding streams for different offices. So I cannot imagine that a combined SF424 would be beneficial to anyone. I'm almost certain it's not, but just to rest assured, I'll get clarity on that. And whoever asked that question, just send an email to tribalgrants@doj.gov so that we don't forget to follow up with you. I'm sure I won't, but just in case, if you could go ahead and send that email asking that question, and we'll get you a very clear answer on that.
And I was just going to say, I agree with you, James, on your responses. And I don't know if this helps, but I mean, I think an estimate on your 424 is okay. Like I think it's okay to have an estimated amount if you're not 100% sure, because ultimately, if your application moves forward during the budget review process, all of the numbers hopefully will be confirmed then. So I hope that answers a little bit more, but it's an estimated amount. I don't think is going to harm you in any way on the 424 as you move forward with your application.
Excellent. Thank you, Melissa and James. And as a follow-up to the SF424 questions, earlier in the webinar, James had mentioned that it was important to put the grant application completer in the 424, but they did not catch which box that was. James, would you be able to provide a little more clarification?
It should be section F. If you check that and that's not it, please reach out to me, but I'm pretty sure it's section F. And it'll be very clear because they're asking for like a name.
Great. Thank you, James. And the next question is regarding purpose area number 4. And for purpose area number 4, does that allow for pre-award costs, such as for planning floor plans and cost estimates?
Thank you. So yeah, this is Julius Dupree with BJA. And as far as that question is concerned, we don't allow for pre-award costs, costs that come prior to the award. But for those activities that are listed in that question, such as they're more planning activities, like the floor plans, the cost estimates, those are the types of costs that would be covered during the grant period. So, all of our projects, they complete that project within the grant period. But that's what where we would fund that. So thank you.
Thank you, Julius. And we have another question regarding the SF424. And for that form, what does that need to match to in Just Grants?
So I think they're asking me about what I just read where we said, make sure that you put, so I'll go back to that 1 second. And I'm also going to try and post it in the chat, what I'm saying, but I'll just read this again. So in FY 2021, funding applications must be submitted, and this is true of COPS too, but I'm just going to say DOJ for the sake of this. In FY 2021, funding applications must be submitted to DOJ in a new 2-step process. First, applicants must register and submit the SF424 and the SFLLL in Grants.gov. And I already gave the deadline for that, which is March 16th. Please note, and this is what I want applicants to pay attention to, when preparing the SF424 in Section F, include the name and contact information of the individual who will complete the application materials in Just Grants. This will allow the system to assign the application to the user in Just Grants. So what we mean is when we say the individual who's going to complete the application materials, essentially that is the person who's going to be submitting your application in Just Grants for CTAS. So it would be great if the person doing the grants.gov is the same person. If not, you two need to work together, and whoever is doing the grants.gov needs to make sure that they are inputting the person's name that's going to be submitting the application in Just Grants, even if they're not the ones doing it in grants.gov. And I will send this information in the chat as soon as I can cut and paste it. But again, if you have any questions about that, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We have links in the solicitation that explain all about how to submit your applications. This will be gone over in great detail when we have the Just Grants and Grants.gov webinar that'll be coming up in a few weeks. So don't panic. We just, again, want to make sure that you are fully aware of this.
Great, thank you, James. And our next question is relating to Purpose Area 9, and as well as the information provided in the PowerPoint in the webinar. And that question is, the PowerPoint said the project period is up to X number of years, but the solicitation gives a specific number of years and does not say up to. Is it really up to, and can they apply for fewer years? And that's specifically referencing Purpose Area 9.
Hi, thank you for that question. For Purpose Area 9, the project period will be 60 months, so it will be a 5-year project. If you have a project that will be that won't take 5 years, you can apply, for fewer than 5 years. But, the formal award, will be for 60 months. So you could submit a 5-year budget and show that there isn't any costs in year 5. So that's an example. So I hope that is clear. If you need any follow-up, please, go ahead and ask any clarifying questions you might have.
Great, thank you, Kara. And our next question is asking if we can repeat the information shared about the indirect cost rate.
Okay, I think they're talking about what I read in from the PowerPoint, and essentially, it's only relevant if you're asking for indirect costs, and most do. So I will repeat that. So essentially, we need to have a current indirect cost rate. So we recognize that sometimes your indirect cost rate agreement that you have is valid at the time that you're applying, at the time that the application is submitted, but it may become non-valid, or it may expire like after you're awarded or right before you're awarded. So we're going to be asking you for updated information. However, if you don't submit one at all, or you submit one in the beginning that's already expired, we're going to be freezing your funds, but only the indirect cost portion of your funds, until we receive that updated indirect cost agreement.
Great, thank you, James. And just for clarification, there was a reference of grants management system. They want to make sure that it is just grants now for the application process, correct?
Yes, it's just grants in combination with grants.gov. So remember, ultimately, just grants is a bigger piece, but it's a 2-step process, and the first part of that process involves you registering in grants.gov, and then you will do the overwhelming majority of everything else regarding submitting your application for CTAS FY21 through just grants. That is the new DOJ grants management system that replaced our old system, GMS.
Great, thank you, James. And if we applied in the past, can we get reader comments for unfunded proposals?
Absolutely. All you need to do is send an email to tribalgrants@usdoj.gov, and we will in turn put you in contact with the POC from that purpose area to get you those previous application comments.
Great, thank you, James. And this next question is regarding Purpose Area 3. And for Purpose Area 3, are you allowed to purchase a home for those offenders who come out of prison that are homeless?
So for purchasing a home or any kind of halfway house, or an infrastructure type thing, you would have to look to Purpose Area 4. For any kind of programming within or for the reentering members of the community, Purpose Area 3 would be would be a good place to look for any of that programming and for running the program. But as far as anything that relates to actually purchasing or renovating a building, if I'm understanding the question properly, that would not be eligible under Purpose Area 3.
And this is Julius. And just to follow up on what Trish was saying, for Purpose Area 4, as Trish pointed out, we do allow for renovation, expansion, and permanent modular facilities, but we do not allow for purchasing real property. So we don't allow for purchasing houses. We don't allow for purchasing land. But if you want to get a permanent modular facility and that serve as your transitional living facility, you can do that. Or you can renovate an existing dwelling on the reservation to serve that purpose as well under Purpose Area 4. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Trish, and thank you, Julius. And our next question is relating to Purpose Area 4. And the question is, must construction projects be shovel ready in order to be eligible? For example, must all the designs, the site control, and permits be secured?
Thank you for that question, and this is Julius Dupree again, and the answer is no. Projects do not need to be shovel-ready in order to be eligible. I know when we had our Recovery Act program, that was a requirement. That was years ago, but we don't require that now. For all those activities that are listed in this question, and I appreciate the examples because that always helps us, with the context, and it helps us with answering these questions. But any design work, site work, permits, all that work should be done during the grant period. I mean, it is a 60-month grant period. You very well may spend the first year on planning related activities. So that's hopefully that answers your question there.
Great, thank you, Julius. And our next question, is there a match or cost sharing requirement for the FY 2021 CTAS?
No, there isn't. Sorry, James.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say no, there isn't. But, I mean, you always wanted, I'm almost 100% certain no purpose area has it. But, I mean, so that's the answer. Yes. Sorry. No match.
Thank you, James and Valisa. And our next questions, the next two are regarding the SF424. And for the first question, just for clarification, if applying for more than one purpose area, is that one combined SF424 in Grants.gov, or would there be separate SF424s?
I think that this is something that we as a team are going to need to follow up with our IT folks on, just to make sure that the answer we're giving everyone is accurate, because I know typically in the past there's been a separate SF424 for each purpose area, but this grants.gov as the initial step, then moving into just grants, is a new process for us. And so I want to be sure that we get accurate information and share that with everyone.
Great, thank you, Trish. And the next question regarding the SF424 is, if the amount is added into the SF424, are they able to update the federal amount in the full application that's submitted in Just Grants?
The budget detail that you provide in Just Grants will obviously be, your updated specific information. How that's going to relate to the SF424, I think that's the same situation as I had just suggested, is that I think we need to work with our IT team to have a clear understanding of exactly how that's going to work.
And Trish, I will add this too. In the onset that someone is awarded, before you are awarded, we're going to make sure that the SF424 in your budget match. So that will be resolved before any type of award is made, but we still will get you clarity on whether or not it needs to be a separate SF424.
Great, thank you so much, James and Trish. Our next question is regarding Purpose Area 9, and the question is, did I hear correctly that the enhancement of existing tribal youth programs is eligible if they are OJJDP funded, or can they apply if not previously funded by OJJDP?
Thank you for that question. So there are two categories for Purpose Area 9. Category 1 is for a tribe that is trying to start a new program. So if you have not been funded by OJJDP before and you want to start a new program, then you would apply under Category 1. The only programs or tribes that are not eligible for that category are those that have gotten a TYP grant in either FY18, FY19, or FY20. So if you have gotten a TYP Purpose Area 9 grant in any of the last 3 years, you would not be eligible for Category 1. Category 2 are for those tribes that have an award with OJJDP that is ending in 2021, who would like to apply for additional funds to enhance or to extend the life of their successful award program.
Great, thank you, Kara. And our next question is regarding purpose area number 4. And the question is new construction not allowed under purpose area number 4, or is it just remodeling existing buildings and or modular building purchases?
Thank you. This is Julius Dupree again with BJA, and the answer to that question is no. There is no new construction under this program, so that is correct. But if let's say you have a facility that you've already had constructed and you want to complete construction, that may be something that you could apply for. But it's mainly renovation, expansion, or permanent modular prefab. No new construction starting from scratch.
Great, thank you, Julius. And can an applicant apply to multiple purpose areas to support the same project? For example, a project that involves improvements to a tribal court.
This is Trish. If you're asking if a project could be split over multiple purpose areas, so certain aspects of a project would be funded under purpose area 3 and other aspects under purpose area 1, or any of the other purpose areas, that's definitely possible. If you're talking about applying for the exact same project in multiple purpose areas, I would not advise that. Generally, you're going to want to have a distinct project or projects, in your different purpose areas.
Great, thank you, Trish. And for for fiscal year 21, on page 43, it states that the tribal resolution is only required for tribal consortia and designees. Are federally recognized tribes still required to submit their tribal resolutions at the time of application?
If it applies to you, well, I should say this. It's only required for the purpose area in which we listed. Prior to this year, there were 2 purpose areas that required it, and that was OVC Purpose Area 6, and then previously Purpose Area 5, which was OVW. But OVW is no longer a part of CTAS, and neither is Purpose Area 5. And so now we're left with Purpose Area 6. And so we always strongly encourage applicants, and we put that language in there on purpose, to submit it with your application. However, we do recognize sometimes that issues arise with getting it, problems pop up, and so we are flexible, but we strongly encourage you that if you are able to submit it with your application, then do so. But it's not only enough just to submit it. You need to make sure that it is relevant for the year in which you're applying, that it is dated, and that it is signed by the appropriate official. Otherwise, just submitting one that doesn't meet those requirements, it might as well be that you didn't submit one. So you want to make sure that you not only submit it, but that it's a complete one.
Great, thank you, James. And does the overall tribal narrative just have to tell about the tribe, or should it pull all the various CTAS programs, if applying for more than one, together in a cohesive narrative? Should we be telling how the programs fit together, although different departments are applying for the different areas?
On the profile document, you want to give the big picture of your community and the problems that you're looking to address through this funding. So in that sense, yes, you want to pull in the big picture and weave together everything that you're looking to address, so that the peer reviewers and the DOJ staff have a clear understanding of your community, your needs, your strengths. What you don't want to do, and what we wouldn't want to burden you with, is having to rewrite the entire purpose area narrative from each purpose area into the profile. The profile will always be reviewed in concert with your purpose area narratives, and so it should be a complementary document that gives us the big picture of what you're addressing, why, and how it fits together. But as far as the details of what you're planning to do with each of the purpose areas, that would be in the purpose area narrative.
I agree with you, Trish. I think you nailed that perfectly.
I agree too. And I believe the profile was updated this year. So when you go and view it, I believe there's only 3 questions. So it's definitely more simplified in that regard.
Great, thank you, everyone. And the next question is relating to Purpose Area 3. And for Purpose Area 3, can these funds be used for counseling, support, and funding for treatment for clients who are not involved with the justice or court system?
Yes, if they are at risk of involvement in the justice system. There does, as DOJ funding, there needs to be a justice system nexus, but they do not have to currently be involved with the system. It could be individuals who are at risk of becoming involved in the system because of their substance abuse behavior, because of other concerns that exist in their history that make them a higher risk for involvement in the system.
Great, thank
and
you,
you would
Trish.
want to clarify that in your description of your service population.
Thank you, Trish. And we have another question. We have 2 modular units that do not have piped water or sewer. I'm in the process of establishing a women's victim services program in one of those units. Would Purpose Area 4 allow the installation of piped water and sewer?
This is Julius Dupree with BJA, and the answer to that question is yes.
Great, thank you, Julius. And another question is, if they already have a Department of Justice grant and already work in Just Grants, do they need to set up any new account information in the Just Grant system by the February 26th deadline, which is mentioned in the solicitation?
No, you wouldn't. If you already have a Just Grants account and it's active and you can work in Just Grants, no, you do not need to. Where it's only for folks who do not have a Just, like either they're not a current awardee and they don't have a Just Grants account at all, like they don't have any account with the new system, then they need to do this. If you already have it, then the only thing you need to worry about is making sure that you register in grants.gov by March 16th and that you submit your application in Just Grants for CTAS by 9 p.m. on March 30th.
Great, thank you, James. And a follow-up regarding the purchasing of a house for a person. Is there any ability to have something purchased for transitional housing?
Well, if for transitional housing, you can purchase a modular facility or prefabricated facility, or you can renovate an existing building or facility on the reservation or expand an existing building. But under no circumstances can you use Purpose Area 4 funds to purchase a house or land or any real property. So hopefully that helps clarify.
Hi, Julius. I'm going to send this to you and to Trish. Just to clarify on this, this is Dara Schulman from BJA as well. It's my understanding that potentially Purpose Area 3 funds could be used if you were starting leasing a facility to serve as a transitional housing unit for people. The rental, actual purchases probably wouldn't be allowed, but you could potentially lease a facility. Trish, please correct me if I'm wrong on that, though.
No, that is correct, Dara. It's the purchase that would be the problem. A lease would be a possibility, and rental assistance would be a possibility. So there are ways to be able to serve that need using either Purpose Area 3 or 4 funds, depending on how you want to approach it. It's just the purchase of a building would not be one of those options.
Great, thank you, Trish, Dara, and Julius. We have a couple of questions that are related to the Just Grant system, the SF424s. So we're going to kind of ask those all in a row together here. There was just one additional final clarification for the grants management system, just making sure that that is no longer in use and that everything is going to be going through Just Grants. There was a mention of GMS in the presentation, so they just want to have that final clarification that GMS is no longer in use and that it is Just Grants this year and grants.gov.
GMS is no longer in existence. We buried that back in September. And so you are going to be using Just Grants. If you ever hear us mention GMS, we're probably mentioning it in relation to saying it's our old system. We now have Just Grants. But yes, GMS is gone, kaput, bye-bye. It doesn't exist anymore.
Great, thank you, James. And as a follow-up for the grants.gov, how does that work with the information going to Just Grants? Does that get sent automatically, or does something else need to happen?
I'm going to be very honest with you. That is a technical question that is beyond me. We will get an answer, but I encourage that person to be on our webinar in which our Just Grants folks will be doing a very detailed session on grants.gov and Just Grants, and that would be the perfect audience or perfect group to ask that question to. The experts will be able to give you that answer.
And just as a follow-up on the SF424, typically grants.gov only allows for one version of any form to be uploaded. So with that, just looking for that additional clarification, if there's more than one project, of how that gets submitted.
And that's exactly why I had said we're going to follow up on that, because that is,
we're going to get clarity.
Yep. And we will, I think that we probably should see, Christina, is it possible once we have some clarity on that to be able to, I guess we should just share that out to the entire tribal subscribers list, actually. We'll make sure that we make a broad announcement to get that to everybody.
We'll blast it. And then we'll make sure that we say it at the beginning of the budget webinar as well, and probably the Just Grants one.
Yep.
And there was a mention that for those looking for projects to help, or for grants to help the homeless, there might be some reentry program grants they thought that could help some of the homeless housing that was mentioned earlier. There is a question asking if the applications are similar to the the procedure NIJ uses.
I will just answer that question by saying, although NIH and DOJ are both obviously federal agencies, when you think of DOJ funding, refer to our solicitation, use our instructions, tune any other federal agency out when you're applying to DOJ, and the same would apply when you're applying to them. Only follow our rules and instructions so that you don't confuse yourself.
There was one final question asking about a transcription, and the answer to that is this webinar is recorded. We will have captions added to the recorded webinar, and that will be made available to everyone who attended. You will receive a follow-up notification in about 2 weeks with information on how to access that recorded webinar. Just as a reminder, this year does have the two-step application process. So there are 2 due dates. The first due date is March 16th for grants.gov, and that is by 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And then the second due date with the full application is March 30th in Just Grants, and that again is 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Do any of our panelists have additional information they would like to share?
This is Julius from BJA, and I noticed that there are a number of questions that are coming up related to reentry. Obviously, CTAS has funding available for reentry programming under some of our purpose areas, such as Purpose Area 3. If you're looking for adults, type of CERT programming, and then maybe JJ also may have programming for reentry as well. But I also want to bring attention to some of there's some non-CTAS grant opportunities that are out there. I'm not going to take the time to go through them, but there are a number of them that are out right now. I think there's 1, 2, maybe up to 4 or 5 of those solicitations out right now. So if you go to and I'll put it in the chat box, our BJA funding link. That way folks can just go and check to see if, any of those programs may fit as well. Just so folks know they're not limited to CTAS and that there are other options available as well.
Hi, this is Kara McDonough at OJJDP, and I just wanted to build on that comment from Julius. There is additional opportunities and OJJDP for funding outside of CTAS and for funding that's not necessarily specific to tribes. But we do have a listserv that goes out that talks about those opportunities. And there is at least one that will have a tribal category. That's a delinquency prevention solicitation. It's not currently posted, but it will be. So we'll go ahead and send you that a link to sign up for that listserv to send out to Christina.
And were there any other additional comments or tips that any of our panelists or presenters would like to share?
Hello, I was just going to say that in the near future, our team is going to be posting some frequently asked questions as well. The majority of the solicitation materials are obviously currently available and online on the Tribal Justice website, as well as the respective offices' home pages. But I also wanted to share that another document that's coming up is a frequently asked questions. So hopefully that tool will also help you as you're preparing your applications.
And I just wanted to share regarding the webinars, if you need to look at the CTAS solicitation page itself on the Tribal Justice website. But if you actually look in the CTAS solicitation, one of the attachments towards the bottom is going to be a link to all of the webinar schedules and with the registration.
And just as a reminder, our next webinar is going to be on Tuesday, February 2nd, which is next Tuesday. That's at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, and the topic of that webinar is Building Strong Grant Applications. And just another reminder that there are some online guides and tools, and those can be located at www.justice.gov/tribal/grants. Are there any final comments anyone would like to share?
Hi, this is Kara from OJJDP again, the Tribal Youth Program representative. There was an issue with the Purpose Area 9 fact sheet, and it was a typo. We're going to be taking care of that and reposting the correct version. So please just accept our apology, and we'll be reposting the correct version.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us today, and we hope you can join us next week for the Building Strong Grant Applications webinar. A list of all of the future webinar sessions can be accessed at www.justice.gov/tribal/grants, and that is located under Open Solicitations. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today, and we hope you have a great remainder of your afternoon.